I want to talk about Code Sniffer, coding standards, Drupal coding standards. So one thing we could talk about is, do coding standards matter? What's the general feeling in the room? Yes. Okay, so I could go on and preach to the choir, but that would sort of be a bit of a waste of time. So Drupal has a long page in the documentation about the coding standards, and they tell you about the doc blocks and the comments and the no white space at the end of lines and how much you're supposed to indent and blah, 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 blah. And I've actually read some of that. Probably more than most people. But really, you can't rely on people to read all of this stuff. So we need some automated tools, and the tool that we use is called PHP Code Sniffer, which you can look up on the Drupal documentation. It tells you how to install it, and actually, this page was, someone edited this page. This page was getting very unmanageable when I reorganized it a few months ago. Ooh, look, a table of contents. So, installing it with Composer. Ooh, there's an anchor. How many Drupal documentation pages have anchors in them so that you can jump to a particular part of the page? And it takes just a couple of lines, Composer, or run this on your shell, Composer global require. Yeah, you can read that, can't you? Squizlabs/PHP Code Sniffer. And you actually want, for what I'm talking about today, is version at least 2. And here's the section I want. Setting up the alias. It was my email page. Anyway, so what does that do for you? Where am I? Yes. So I had a little trouble because I had some older version installed, and I was having trouble resolving the conflicts. And until now, when people told me to install something with Composer, I just followed the instructions blindly. And I actually had to work a little at understanding Composer, which could maybe be subject of yet another talk, how to use Composer. But one of the things it lets you do is install a brand new copy in some other directory where it won't conflict with the copy you've previously installed. And so I made a couple of aliases. So I can now say PHP Code Sniffer 2 because it's version 2. And then adp.module. And it gives me this lovely list of all the violations of the pair coding standards in this document. Ah, that's not what I want. Because what I forgot to say was -s standard equals Drupal. And I get 44 errors. No, 44. How many total? Let's look through the list of errors. 52 errors and 3 warnings on 35 lines. That's not so bad. And I could go through this list, but of course, there are better ways. How high can I go? Is that readable?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, with your favorite IDE or text editor, and on the list of stupid arguments you can have is Vim a text editor or is it an IDE? it's right up there with how is an interface different from an abstract base class? So with the appropriate integration, instead of going through this black and white table of line numbers and explanations of what's wrong, you get little markers, and if you hover over it, you get down at the bottom of the screen, function comment short description must start with a capital letter. Okay, so I could implement book menu, and there's still an error there. What's the problem now?
Period. Yep.
Yeah,
It's one of the elements of the Drupal.
I know what the answer is.
Coding standards. It makes me insane. Who the fuck cares whether it has a period at the end of it?
I'm having some trouble.
During a live demo?
Anyway, right, I should be getting another error that I didn't end it with a period. So there are all these things like this has to start with a capital letter, and you didn't indent this properly, and you forgot to put a space around your concatenation operator. And you look at these error messages and you say, why are you just telling me that it's wrong? Why can't you just fix it for me? And I've, of course, been complaining about that for a while. Well, it turns out I was not the only one who had that complaint. And the people, or maybe it's just one guy, I don't know, who wrote PHP Code Sniffer came out with version 2.0.0 fairly recently, December 4th or 5th. And the big change in version 2.0.0 is that now it not only tells you where the errors are, but it can fix many of them. How many of them it fixes depends on the snips you write into your Drupal coding standards. So there's work there that's being done not just by the larger PHP community with PHP Code Sniffer, but also a few really anal-retentive guys in the Drupal community who've been supporting PHP Code Sniffer for the Drupal coding standards. And let me go back to my browser. Here is the announcement from December 5th. Code Sniffer 2.0.0 is released, and the diff report, more features. Somewhere in here it says, oh yeah, PHP CBF, Code Beautifier and Fixer. And that's why I had to install the recent version. And then if you look at the bottom line of that report, why can't I see my cursor? This cursor doesn't increase size like everything else. PHP Code Beautifier and Fixer can fix 44 of the 52, 53 errors automatically. So what you can do is instead of running Code Sniffer, you can run Code Beautifier and Fixer, CBF, on it, ba-ba-boom, and you go back and yes, this file has been changed. Let's load the file. And you'll see that where it had put permission, it put a capital letter at the beginning and a period at the end. Okay, so there's some work to be done here. So what now? I've overwritten my file, and some of the fixes are probably pretty good, like it puts spaces around my concatenation operators, and some of them suck, like this one. So what do I do now?
Git diff?
Yeah.
Maybe just like another minute.
Okay. So I can now say, that change really didn't help all that much, so So let me get the original version, go to the next one. Oh, that looks fine. Go to the next one, go to the next one, and so forth. So as long as your files are under version control and your text editor or your IDE integrates well with Git, you're in good shape. But also, so one thing I don't like is requiring people to use Git, and it's a good idea, but I like a method that doesn't involve that. So I wrote a little Vim script that saves a copy of the file to a temporary directory, runs phpcbf on that temporary file, and then opens the two in a diff split. So if you just say phpcbf, command line completion, in a few seconds, I haven't modified my original file. I can still jump from one change to the next and say, oh, yeah, I would like to capitalize that. Let's accept that change. Change to the next one. My screen is wrapping, so I can't see what the difference is. And, oh yeah, I just added some spaces. Let's accept that change. Go to the next one, and so on. So I have gone through files and jumped from error to error detected by PHP Code Sniffer and fixed them manually. And now you can either totally automate the process, just overwrite your file and let the next person worry about it, or you can have this semi-automatic method where you compare the two versions and then just go through and accept the changes you like and edit your heart's content the parts you don't like. Any questions?
Now, when you accept the changes, does it happen automatically, or do you have to do that manually?
I go to one change at a time, and I use the standard command. For my text editor, I say do for diff obtain to pull in the change from the other file. Like there's a space that shouldn't be here. Boom, it's gone. Any other questions? And that's why I call it semi-automatic. It's not totally automatic, but it only takes a few keystrokes.